The war in Ukraine has produced countless shocking moments, but few stories have sent waves of disbelief across the world like the recent claims surrounding a covert Ukrainian intelligence operation that allegedly poisoned thousands of Russian soldiers. If true, this single act would represent one of the most audacious and unconventional intelligence maneuvers in modern warfare, a move that blurs the line between espionage, psychological warfare, and battlefield strategy. While official confirmations remain limited and both sides are locked in information warfare, the implications of such an operation could be enormous, potentially reshaping how future wars are fought. According to emerging reports circulating through intelligence circles, independent journalists, and military analysts, Ukrainian operatives may have successfully infiltrated Russian supply chains and logistics networks, targeting food and water sources used by frontline troops. The result, allegedly, was the mass poisoning of Russian soldiers across multiple locations, leaving thousands incapacitated without a single shot being fired. The scale of the operation, if accurate, would be unprecedented in the current conflict, and deeply humiliating for a military that once claimed near-total operational dominance. Modern warfare is no longer confined to tanks, missiles, and drones. It now includes cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, economic pressure, and covert intelligence operations designed to weaken an enemy from within. Ukraine, facing a larger and better equipped adversary, has repeatedly demonstrated its ability to adapt creatively, from sinking warships with naval drones to striking deep inside Russian territory using long-range precision attacks. Ukrainian forces have shown that innovation can compensate for numerical disadvantage. This alleged poisoning operation, if confirmed, would be another example of that strategy in action. Russian military logistics have long been criticized for corruption, poor oversight, and outdated systems. These weaknesses create openings for sabotage, especially in a war where supply lines stretch across vast territories and occupied zones. Food, water, and medical supplies are often handled by third-party contractors, local collaborators, or poorly trained personnel. In such an environment, a land intelligence operation could theoretically compromise supplies without immediate detection. The idea that Ukrainian intelligence might exploit these vulnerabilities is not far-fetched, especially given their track record throughout the conflict. The alleged operation reportedly unfolded quietly. Instead of explosions or dramatic assaults, the impact was slow and insidious. Soldiers began reporting severe stomach pain, nausea, dizziness, and weakness. Units that were previously combat-ready suddenly found themselves unable to fight. Medical facilities near the front lines were overwhelmed, while commanders struggled to understand why entire battalions were becoming ineffective almost overnight. In war, confusion is as dangerous as enemy fire, and this confusion may have been exactly the goal. If thousands of soldiers were indeed poisoned, the immediate battlefield consequences would be severe. Units rendered unfit for combat would need to be withdrawn, replaced, or reinforced, disrupting planned offensives or defensive positions. Morale would plummet not just among affected troops but across the wider force. Soldiers would begin to fear their own supplies, questioning whether the food and water meant to sustain them might instead make them sick. That kind of fear corrodes trust, and trust is essential for any army to function. Psychological warfare has always been a key element of conflict, but this would represent a particularly effective form. Unlike artillery fire, which soldiers expect, poisoning strikes at a sense of safety that even war cannot entirely erase. Eating, drinking, and resting are basic human needs, and when those become sources of danger, stress levels rise dramatically. Soldiers who cannot trust their meals cannot focus fully on fighting. Over time, this mental strain can be just as damaging as physical losses. The broader strategic impact would extend beyond the battlefield. A successful operation of this nature would send a powerful message to Russian leadership. Nowhere is truly safe. Even far from active fighting, even behind supposed security layers, Ukrainian intelligence could still reach them. This kind of message is designed not just to weaken troops, but to force decision makers into defensive postures, diverting resources toward internal security rather than frontline operations. At the same time, such an operation would raise serious ethical and legal questions. International law places strict limits on chemical and biological warfare. Even if non-lethal substances were used, the line between sabotage and prohibited weapons can be thin. Ukraine has consistently positioned itself as a defender of international norms, especially in contrast to Russian actions. Any confirmed use of poisoning as a weapon could complicate diplomatic relationships and risk backlash from allies. This is one reason why official statements remain cautious and ambiguous. Russia, for its part, has predictably denied the allegations or downplayed them as misinformation. Russian state media has accused Ukraine and its supporters of spreading propaganda to undermine morale. In some reports, illnesses among soldiers were attributed to poor hygiene, spoiled food, or seasonal illnesses. This response itself highlights another dimension of the conflict: information control. Admitting to a successful enemy sabotage operation would be embarrassing and damaging, so denial becomes a strategic necessity. However, history shows that denial does not always mean falsehood. Many intelligence operations remain classified or only partially revealed for years. During the Cold War, numerous covert actions were initially dismissed as conspiracy theories, only to be confirmed decades later. In the fog of war, truth is often the first casualty, and separating fact from fiction becomes extremely difficult. Analysts must therefore examine patterns, indirect evidence, and the credibility of sources rather than relying solely on official statements. One intriguing aspect of the alleged operation is its timing. Reports suggest it may have coincided with key moments on the battlefield, when Russian forces were attempting to regroup or launch new offensives. If true, this would indicate careful coordination between intelligence agencies and military planners. Disabling enemy units just before a planned attack could drastically alter outcomes, allowing Ukrainian forces to regain territory or strengthen defensive lines with reduced resistance. This kind of coordination reflects a high level of professionalism and integration within Ukraine's security apparatus. Since the beginning of the war, Ukrainian intelligence services have undergone rapid transformation, aided by Western training, technology, and intelligence sharing. While Ukraine operates independently, its access to advanced surveillance, communication interception, and data analysis tools has likely improved its ability to identify vulnerabilities in Russian systems. The human cost of such an operation must also be considered. While poisoning may be described as non-lethal or strategic, the suffering involved is real. Soldiers experiencing severe illness in battlefield conditions face heightened risk of complications or death, especially if medical care is limited. War already dehumanizes, and tactics that exploit basic human needs intensify that reality. Supporters argue that any method that reduces direct combat deaths is preferable, while critics warn that normalization of such tactics could lead to dangerous escalation. Escalation is a constant concern in this war. Russia has repeatedly warned against actions it perceives as crossing red lines, even when those actions occur far from its own territory. A large-scale intelligence operation affecting thousands of soldiers could be interpreted as a significant escalation, potentially provoking retaliation. That retaliation might not mirror the original tactic, but could take other forms, including intensified missile strikes, cyber attacks, or covert operations abroad. From a strategic perspective, the alleged poisoning operation fits into a broader pattern of asymmetric warfare. Ukraine cannot match Russia tank for tank or missile for missile, but it can exploit agility, intelligence, and creativity. Asymmetric strategies aim to make the cost of aggression unbearably high for the stronger party, forcing it to reconsider objectives or negotiate. Every disrupted supply line, every compromised unit, and every shaken soldier contributes to that cost. Public reaction to the story has been intense. Supporters of Ukraine view it as a sign of ingenuity and resilience, proof that the country can outthink and outmaneuver a larger adversary. Critics worry about the precedent it sets and the potential for misinformation to spiral out of control. Social media, with its rapid spread of unverified claims, amplifies both perspectives, making the narrative itself a battleground. The uncertainty surrounding the number 9000 is particularly telling. Large, round numbers often become symbolic in wartime storytelling. They convey scale and shock, but may not reflect precise reality. Whether the true figure is hundreds, thousands, or significantly less, the psychological impact of the claim may matter more than the exact count. In information warfare, perception can shape behavior as powerfully as facts. If Russian soldiers believe that their comrades have been poisoned en masse, fear will spread regardless of official reassurances. If Ukrainian civilians believe their intelligence services are capable of such feats, morale will rise. If international audiences believe Ukraine is gaining the upper hand through clever tactics, political support may strengthen. Thus, the story itself becomes a weapon, influencing attitudes and decisions far beyond the battlefield. As the war continues, we are likely to see more claims like this, more stories that challenge traditional notions of combat. Drones controlled from thousands of kilometers away, cyber attacks that shut down infrastructure, and intelligence operations that incapacitate forces without explosions are becoming defining features of modern conflict. The alleged poisoning of Russian soldiers fits into this evolving landscape, where victory is pursued through disruption rather than direct confrontation. Whether or not this specific operation occurred exactly as described, it highlights a crucial reality. Wars are no longer fought solely by soldiers at the front. They are fought by analysts, hackers, spies, logisticians, and storytellers. Every weakness can be exploited, every mistake amplified. In such a war, the difference between strength and vulnerability often lies in adaptability and imagination. In the end, the truth about the alleged poisoning may emerge slowly, if at all. Classified documents, post-war investigations, or whistleblowers may one day shed light on what really happened. Until then, the story stands as a powerful example of how modern warfare is as much about unseen battles as visible ones. It reminds us that behind every headline lies a complex web of strategy, ethics, and human consequence. If the claim is true, it marks a turning point, not because of the suffering inflicted, but because of what it represents: the ability of a smaller nation to challenge a larger power through intelligence and ingenuity. If it is exaggerated or false, it still reveals how deeply the conflict has entered the realm of psychological and informational combat. Either way, the story of the alleged poisoning of Russian soldiers will remain part of the war's narrative, shaping perceptions and strategies long after the immediate events fade from view. And as the world watches, one thing is clear. The war in Ukraine is not just about territory. It is about adaptation, resilience, and the relentless search for advantage in a conflict where the rules are constantly being rewritten.